In this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinox Television, we take you to the central region of the country where the ruling CPDM has grabbed 56 out of the 70 seats at the just ended senatorial elections in the country. The Supreme Court sitting in for the Constitutional Council confirmed the victory that was today in the central region of Cameroon. And also the Treasury Department in the southwest region of the country is battling to recover 64 billion francs CFA. And the revelation was made during a meeting that took place in that part of the country, precisely in the Tico subdivision. This is the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinox Television. Good evening to you viewers. We thank you so much for joining us in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinox Television. We begin right away in the central region of the country where the Supreme Court sitting in for the Constitutional Council has confirmed the victory of the ruling CPDM at the just ended senatorial elections in the country. The court, which announced the result today, said the CPDM had 56 senators against 14 for the opposition party, that is the Social Democratic Front. Roland Akong, based correspondent, caught up with some party officials in the central region of the country and now tells us more in the following report.
After grabbing 14 out of the 70 seats for elected senators, the SDF party is now preparing for a better performance in future elections in Cameroon.
Which all is not lost, because we have other elections that are coming up, and I think now we have to look ahead. What should we do, strategize, to get more seats in the councils and in the parliament?
At a meeting in Bamenda next month, SDF party officials will decide on whether to take or reject appointment of its supporters by President Biya to the Senate.
We have to now look for eligible people who will go in. And, it is up to the next meeting to sit and decide. We have a meeting on the 4th of May.
This lady is one of the 7 SDF senators in the West region. She expresses thanks to God for her appointment and says she is set to go to work.
Et je remercie d'abord le Seigneur. Et après, on va travailler, on se met au travail.
This is a former member of government. He was one-time minister for the environment. He is now a senator.
I'm very glad. Very, very glad, because it's the first time we have a senator in this country, and as you can constate, we are very glad.
This gentleman is former mayor of Yaoundé 3. After the proclamation of the results of senators, we caught with him at his Efulan residence to get his impression.
I congratulate the Cameroonian people because of the discipline they have showed, because in front of, while waiting for the official result. My happiness is I must say, I thank the mighty God, because he helped me being here. Really, I'm not a newcomer in politics. I am a man who will go on.
Conspicuously absent from the Supreme Court during the proclamation of the result of senators is the president of the Cameroon Democratic Union, Ndamjoya. His party, the CDU, scored 0. No reasons have been given over his absence. The event was witnessed by many government officials and members of the diplomatic corps accredited to Yaoundé.
That is how that historic event took place in the central region of the country. We remain in that part of Cameroon to add that the building to host the first ever Senate in Cameroon is still undergoing construction works even after the proclamation of the April 14 polls, the results of the April 14 polls. And Roland Akon, once again in the following report, who visited the Senate building in the central region of the country for the paints the picture.
This is the building to host the Senate of Cameroon. The state-of-the-art architect is situated near the presidency, directly behind the Hydrocarbons Corporation, the SNH. Construction work is visibly rounding up on the building. Reports we could not confirm say if by April 14 work is not completed on the building, senators will likely sit in one of the halls of the Yaoundé Conference Center. Our sources say space will not be a problem to host the senators while waiting for the completion of works on the building to host the Senate of Cameroon.
Now 2 days to the International Labour Day, that is the 127th edition of the International Labour Day. The usual effervescence of mass influx of customers is yet to be felt in many tailoring workshops in the city of Douala. Meanwhile, some business persons our reporters spoke to today in the economic capital Douala described the day as a non-event, and they are saying that they have a very little or no role to play as far as the Labour Day is concerned. Bila tells us more in the following report.
The International Labour Day is usually characterized by much pass and merrymaking between employers and their employees. More often than not, those who participate in the march past are involved in the formal sector. Most Cameroonians of the informal sector or petty businessmen and women told us categorically that Labour Day celebration is none of their concerns. Just beside this car box operator, Lillian, who is an orange vendor, tells us timidly that she won't not much because orange selling is not a job, according to her.
Je ne suis pas sûre de participer. Pourquoi? Essayer de travailler dans une société pour participer à la fête du 1er mai.
On the other hand, this soya vendor and his friends selling mobile phones will be present at the Yigdiak Square for March Pass if they are invited. Reason being that they are sure of having a free t-shirt with food and drinks aplenty during May Day celebrations. Business persons and other enterprises are into the heart of preparations for this year's International Labour Day. Those involved in the chain of preparations, such as serigraphers, told us that all is not well with the sector this year as compared to previous years. Mr. Mutome on his part says their job is being paralyzed by enterprises which prefer to use loans and also attribute the drop or decline in business on the proliferation of serigraphers in town. Tailors and seamstresses are also in the train. Though serigraphers complain of a decline in business, tailors have a contrary story. At these tailoring workshops, the men say they have so much work at hand and believe they will finish on time. Some clients could be spotted waiting impatiently just beside to ensure that their dresses are done before the D-Day.
Meanwhile, there are reports of how the mortal remains of the 72-year-old Mama Kamonye would be exhumed after she was buried in Bangu in the west region of the country. The family, which mistook her corpse for one of theirs deposited at the same mortuary, are now making plans to recover late Julien Quita after handing over Mama Kamonye to her family. And it was a state of shock at the New Bell District Hospital a few weeks back following the alleged disappearance of late Mama Kamonye at the mortuary. It was after findings from law enforcement officers and also legal administrators of the region, that's the littoral region, that it was discovered that Mama Kamonye had been buried by another family. We shall keep you updated on that story in our subsequent newscast. Meanwhile, some traders at Dembopi Market are still counting their losses after ravaging flames consumed at its 4 shops at the market that was yesterday. Reports say the incident was provoked by the sudden return of electricity after hours of blackouts. Security forces were there to prevent properties from being looted. This is the 3rd time in less than 6 months that the Dembopi Market is in flames. Still here in the economic capital, Douala, students in examination classes at College Eyenge Kango in Daido here in Douala today went on rampage, mounted barricades on highway denouncing what they have described as exploitative nature of the administration. They complained of months of no practical lessons after each student paid the sum of 7,000 francs CFA, and they are demanding the reimbursement of their practical fees, and school authorities have simply told them to exercise some patients. And it should be noted that this strike action is coming after that of Institute Secondaire de Technology here in the economic capital Douala, and also that of College Baho, and that is still here in Douala. Now we take you to Nkonsamba, still in the littoral region of the country, where inhabitants of the Mongo division persistently complaining that public authorities have abandoned their community. They are said to be living in the midst of garbage heaps, while drainage patterns have been blocked, exposing them to inundations at every time it rains. They are calling on public authorities to help them to ameliorate their living conditions, especially considering that the spread of cholera is on the rise there as a result of poor sanitation conditions of many parts of the town. Now in the following excerpt, one of the inhabitants of Nkonsamba, that is in the Mongo division of the country, further tells us their plight.
We have a problem here, this bridge. First thing, the bridge is small, and there is a pipe. There's a pipe-borne water that is crossed under the bridge. That's the pipe which is disturbing the trunk from the banana. When the people from the upside, when they throw the trunk of the banana inside the gutter, it come and block from that pipe. So please, we are begging the government, we are begging the people who are responsible for all this, that they should put hand, help us how to clean this gutter for the way that we can live in a good way. Because when the gutter is blocked, everywhere water get into our houses and spoil our cows. So I beg the government to help us.
We now take you to the southwest region of the country, as we announced in the headlines, where Treasury accountants in that part of Cameroon are seeking ways to recover 64 billion francs CFA tax deficit of the year 2012. They recently converged on the Tico subdivision on the sidelines of their first quarter coordination meeting of the Treasury accountants in that part of Cameroon. Derek Jato was in Tico and tells us more in the following report.
Tico subdivision was the host town for the first quarter coordination meeting of Treasury accountants of the Southwest Financial Jurisdiction. In his keynote address, the Southwest Paymaster General, Mr. Ayub Peter, called on his collaborators to sit up and recover 66,328,497 francs CFA accumulated on covered taxes of December 2012, and further reminded them of the 2014 total change in the nomenclature.
It is worth noting that the accumulated outstanding on recovered taxes of our region is as at the 31st of December 2012 at the sum of 66,328,497. We must sit up and recover this money. In 2014, the nomenclature will be completely changed. This is the time for you people to read up on the Ohana accounting plan.
Respect hierarchy, show transparency and punctuality as you carried out the state assignment, where the words from Mr. Lima Felix, the representative of Director General of Treasury, Financial and Monetary Corporation, to the participants. As custodians of the state funds, the Senior Divisional Officer for Fako Division, Mr. Zhang III, on behalf of the Southwest Governor, preached the gospel of rigor and vigilance. In 4 months, these public accountants of the region will converge in Tombel for the second quarter deliberations.
Derek Jato ending the report now. That does it for this segment of the news. But up next is Talking Point. We thank you so much, viewers, for joining us tonight on Talking Point. We are going to be talking the senatorial elections, which the various political parties going to the Senate are already known. We have the CPDM and also the Social Democratic Front. The CPDM, which is happened to have grabbed 56 seats, 56 against 14 for the Social Democratic Front. And tonight we have as guest a civil society observer, Mr. BANDOLO. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight.
Good evening.
Like Ella said, the results of the April 14 polls are already known, and we see this CPDM, the ruling CPDM, having 56 seats against 14 for the Social Democratic Front. We see just two political parties involved in the race. It's not more the race because the Senate are already known, the senators are already known. So what's your immediate reaction to that?
Yeah, I think I want to begin by thank you once more for inviting me to make a comment about the democratic process in the country, particularly on the elections that just took place on the 14th. And today, after about 17 years, we're going to have a Senate, meaning therefore that the problem of who is next if anything happens to the President of the Republic is already answered. And I want to say that the whole contest has been narrowed down to two political parties. And fortunately, there is a provision for the President to make up the 100 seat with the appointment of 30. So the ones we have now are those who have been elected. And in the coming days, we are hoping that the President is going to appoint 30 to make the 100.
What could possibly be your predictions? Are you having?
You know, you hardly predict the mind of the President. I think he has the knife and the yam to appoint those he.
What's your proposal?
He thinks. But I think that it is important that those who participated in the election, the other political parties, the UNDP and the CDU, who were unfortunately not able to secure a seat, could be members of their party could be calling. Well, we are not talking about regional balance here, because if you are elected, you are called upon to serve the country wherever you are. But I think for the sake of some harmony and to appease maybe the other political groupings, those credible ones, of course, should be given an opportunity to represent the country in the upper house, to give it a regional balance, because, as I said, it's my opinion. You cannot read the mind of the President.
So to you, maybe getting to appoint members of other political parties
who participated in the election. We have UNDP, we have CDU, for example.
Are they different from other political parties who actually filed in maybe to be part of the senatorial race?
These ones were actually selected by ELECAM, and they found them credible enough to participate in the elections that was held. And looking at it from that political point of view, we should also look at other aspects. I think we have also credible Cameroonians from other walks of life, especially in the religious domain. They could also be called upon to serve their country, and you know, to make it look the bicultural, the multicultural, the bilingual, and whatever nature you want to call it. Because if you look at it, the big surprise came from Adamawa, Boundary, right? Because
why is it a surprise?
Well, you notice that since 1990, the reinstatement of multi-party politics in Cameroon, apart from the UNDP, the MDR, a party that hails mostly from the western hemisphere of the country, the western region, the northwest region is having a foothold now in the northern region, which shows that the Cameroonians are getting mature and they can make their choices. It doesn't matter where you come from.
But some political analysts are not thinking that way. They are seeing an alliance maybe between the ruling CPDM and the SDF, especially now that we have just the two political parties in for the Senate.
Except those who are not reading the papers. I think I read in the paper that the first vice national chairman of the SDF, Mr. Joshua Osi, was not talking of a deal. He said precisely that their deal is to advance democracy in Cameroon, and that if precisely
so there's actually a deal
in the Sun, he said there was no deal. The deal was to advance democracy. I don't know what that meant, but I want to emphasize that what he was trying to say is that it was they were in a competition, and somebody has won, the other party has won, and it must be respected. It should not be seen as a deal. You know, the recent political events in the country shows that there are so many problems in the northern part of the country, right? Within the UNDP, within the CPDM, the fight for corruption has brought in a lot of problems. And so the victory of the SDF there has so many interpretations. You are not going to say that it's because of a deal. The first vice national chairman of the SDF said, if it was a deal, the deal was not to give up the Northwest region. Do you understand? So it's not actually, let us read it from the perception of what they who are involved are saying, not from our own perception.
So now in about 10 days, the head of state is expected to appoint 30 other senators to add up to the 70 already existing senators that we had their results proclaimed today in the central region of the country. We see lawyers too were already coming up, maybe demanding a place in the Senate. We also saw people with disability. We also saw the UN observers mission that came to Cameroon. We're talking of gender parity, that it should be put in place. So according to you, what do you have in mind?
No, in as much as these groups of persons have their legitimate right to clamor for appointment, but I think the issue of gender equity is the most important to me. The Cameroonian women now are becoming very assertive and playing a very vital role in the social, economic, and political domain in our country, where the men have failed, the women are trying to fill the gap. I mean, if they are qualified, they should be given the opportunity from the perception of the gender perspective. I also want to say that we are talking about the Senate, and since it's the first experience we have in the country, we are waiting now to know what role a senator is going to play. What's going to be the differences between the role of a senator and that of a parliamentarian, the regional groupings that will be coming
because
up.
we only have them in papers.
Yeah, because actually I would like to let you know, as a member of the civil society, I'm still to understand the function of a senator. I know it's going to come up, but from then you will be judging to understand how important it's going to be. But as I said, the Constitution makes it clear that there was supposed to be the upper house. I mean, when the Constitution was revisited in 1996, and this time around we have it. There we are very happy. And the evolution of things now in the country, you can hardly predict. We just pleading that Cameroonians should make up their mind to do the right thing anytime they are called up to serve their country.
So next we are going to be having the legislatives and also the municipal elections that is going to come up. We don't know when actually. We had, first of all, the senatorials, even though many political parties were saying that it was supposed to come before the municipals and the legislatives. So do you think the senatorial elections is going to have somewhat an impact, whether negative or positive, in the upcoming elections that we are going to have in Cameroon?
Yeah, it depends on the way we see it. But what I want to say generally is that the impact will be both negative and positive in some part of the country. In the sense that, you know, the electors for these senatorial elections were the councillors, municipal councillors, whose mandate had expired, and that matter was addressed. And so I'm sure that the political parties that will be going in for the next elections, the municipal elections and legislative elections, must have learned a very serious lesson from what has just transpired. And there will be so many adjustments. That is, to me, what the impact is going to look like.
What do you mean by adjustments?
Adjustment in the sense that if you look at UNDP that went in and had no seat, CDU went in and had no seat, the members of government came explaining why the CDU list was disqualified, because it was not representative enough. So it means, therefore, that they have to sit up in that domain. The SDF has been challenged in its stronghold. They have to sit up in the north. The SDF has made an inroad. So you see the dynamics has actually changed. And they themselves, they know what is going on in the field. We're just saying that all of that should be in the advancement of the process of democracy, which is going to give a better representation, a better safeguard of the interests of Cameroonians, and that's more important. But any political party that has not learned a lesson from what has just transpired is not worth the salt.
You better sit up and see what they can. So what you are trying to, what happens to those that are senators now and at the same time occupying posts like public posts?
Yes, that the Constitution has addressed that issue. I'm sure they're going to give up those. They have to take one and leave the other. But I think, you see, sometimes, to be very honest, you don't keep on criticizing a system that is trying to improve itself. I will seize the opportunity to appreciate some members or some personalities whom we saw on the list, especially of the ruling party. If you look at the performance of the CPDM in the Northwest, what strikes me most is the performance of someone like Ngamfon Zakaria Awanga, who is now senator-elect. It's a very credible individual. You know, I think I'm very impressed with his personality. I know him personally. And when you see that kind of person going to the upper house, it's somebody who loves Cameroon with a passion. And you know that he's going to do a good job. For the others, we wait to see what they're going to do, both from the SDF and the ruling CPDM.
Thanks indeed, Mr. Bandolo NDAKWE, for joining us tonight on Talking Point, and we hope to have you some other time again.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
And to you viewers, we thank you so much for joining us in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinox Television. Join Fenelon Mausen at exactly 8 p.m. for the French version of the news. Meantime, have a wonderful stay in the company of our programs. Good evening.